A picturesque beachside backdrop on the island of Lombok for the Mandalika International Circuit. After a 4-week break between late season flyaways, it's the 12th and final round of the 2021 campaign. An end of season party for Dominic Egerter, making his first appearance as world champion. The title race itself wrapped up on the final day of the Argentinian round last time out. 2 more wins though up for grabs in 2021 and at a new circuit, and that should add some extra spice to proceedings. And of course, Steve English alongside me, 2 other places on the end of season podium. So silver and bronze still waiting to be claimed this weekend.
Yeah, still to be decided between Odendaal, Gonzalez, and also with the 4-man of the last few rounds, Jules Cluzel. He can still move himself into those top 3 positions in the championship. What's the big talking point right now though in the paddock is the weather conditions. We've got big storm clouds brewing over the Mandalika International Circuit. The Supersport riders are just about to head to the grid, and it's in the next 10 minutes that they're going to have to decide which tyres to use, whether to be out there on the X tyre to give them the softest compound, or if we end up having a few spots of rain.
As we've said, the Riders' Championship already settled in 2021 in favour of this man, Dominic Egerter. The Constructors' the Manufacturers' Championship as well. One-way traffic, of course, for Yamaha. Only the Teams Award is still up for grabs. 90 points available this weekend. Tenkate 8 ahead of Puchetti and 35 clear of Evan Brothers.
Yeah, it has been a really impressive season by Tenkate, obviously, from Dominic Egerter, able to wrap up that championship last time out. He's able to race with a lot of confidence now and just free from any pressure. We saw what he could do in the Super Pole session to take that pole position. Just looking out of our commentary box window just to see how the teams are preparing for this. I'm seeing a lot of the riders, helpers and assistants out there with clear visors in case it rains, and just whether or not riders need to make some racing Yamaha, and hopefully he's able to build on that front row and challenge for a second podium of the season.
As for Dominic Egerter, he will be back to defend his Supersport title with Tenkate in 2022. That news officially confirmed between the end of season flyaways, although to be perfectly honest, it has been expected for some time.
Yeah, and certainly it has been expected, but a lot of these Supersport riders with a bit of uncertainty about what they're going to do for next season. But with Dominic Egerter able to get his future secured after winning that championship, Tenkate are excited to have him back on their bike for next season. I think this is obviously the last race in Supersport before we have a major regulation change, and having that bit of consistency next year could make a big difference for the likes of Tenkate and for Dominic Egerter. There's going to be a lot of riders changing teams, a lot of riders changing bikes as well, with the likes of an 800cc MV Agusta on the grid next year, Ducati back with their V-twin as well, so there are going to be a lot of changes out there.
Quick word, we're 1 rider down on the grid. Valentin Debise missing. He's out with ligament damage to his left shoulder.
Yeah, real shame for Valentin as well, because we've seen flashes of speed from him since he's returned to the class with that GMT 94 squad. He's just had no luck since he came back to the class, and this weekend he was the first crasher here in Mandalika this weekend, and he ended up with that pretty bad shoulder injury, so he's having to sit out the action.
Introducing the 2021 World Champion, Dominic Egerter. 19 races, 14 podiums, 10 wins, 5 of them in succession earlier on in the season. He's without a victory, though, since Jerez. 2 5th places and 2 3rd places from Portugal and Argentina. That's Dominic Egerter then, looking to bounce back to winning ways this weekend.
Yeah, he was able to claim that first pole since Navarra, and always a good indication of where Egerter's been. But he's been fast all the way through this season. Even whenever he was just settling for podium spots, he was still able to consolidate that championship advantage. He's now able to race free of any of the hassles of having to think about the title, and he's going to be nice and relaxed for these 2 races.
7 podiums in the last 7 rounds for Manuel Gonzalez, who really has come of age in Supersport this season. He's now set for a permanent move to Moto2 in 2022, hoping to secure the bronze medal this afternoon. Still has a shot at silver as well.
Yeah, very exciting talent to come through in the Superbike paddock over the last few years. Could still finish in those top 3 spots and be a really well-deserved top 3 in the World Championship for Gonzalez. He's been a really complete season since switching on to that Yamaha.
As we've said, racing for a 3rd different team in 2021, Federico Caricasulo comes in as a substitute for Marcel Brenner, who's elected not to travel for VFT. Of course, Caricasulo started this season with GMT 94, switched to Moto X Racing, but they're a Supersport Challenge team, so the Italian missed the trip to Argentina and returns this weekend. That's a look at your front row then. Dominic Egerter, Manuel Gonzalez and Federico Caricasulo. Second row of the grid will feature Raffaele de Rosa, Randy Krumenacker and Nicky Nicky Tully, and here is De Rosa. Scoreless from the Argentinian round, a race 1 crash and then a mechanical failure in race 2. The visit to Barcelona, his most productive in what's been an inconsistent 2021 campaign. It's left him down in 10th, his worst ranking actually since the last of his Honda days, some 7 years ago.
Yeah, I think what we've seen from Rafa this season is just how difficult it can be with the Kawasaki. Obviously with Rafa, the likes of Philip Erdl, Chan On-Chu, we've seen lots of good performances from each of the Kawasaki riders, but it's tended to be at different races for each of them as well, so it is tough to get the most out of that package compared to the Yamahas.
Welcome back to Randy Krumnacher, who, like Federico Caricasulo, who starts the row in front of him, had a mid-season switch of teams. CM Racing missed the visit to Argentina last time out. Good to have Randy Krumnacher back, and he's been competitive right from the off.
Yeah, he really has been. He obviously had to miss that Argentinian round, but hasn't missed a beat so far this weekend. Very fast in free practice yesterday and able to qualify in the second row of the grid, so keep an eye out for the 21. He could really be in the podium contention and may be able to bring the fight to the likes of Dominic Aguilar, but it is a big ask.
This is Philip Erdl behind, the German, who held 3rd position overall after his latest podium in Jerez, but 8th his best finish in 2 rounds since. He's now dropped 34 points behind. This is his final weekend in Supersport before he moves to the Superbike class with Go 11 in 2022.
Yeah, very exciting to see Erdl on that bike next year. He'll want to finish off with at least a couple of top 5s in the races this weekend. His
teammate Chan On-Chu lines up alongside him. The Turkish youngster enjoyed his best scoring weekend yet last time out in Argentina. Back-to-back podiums for the first time, a 3rd and a 2nd, leaving only 1 position remaining. He chases his first win this weekend. Chan On-Chu there lining up from P8. Alongside him will be Stephen Odendahl. But in the meanwhile, we jump back to Nicky Tully. We've now caught up with him, completing the second row of the grid from P6. And Tully, a podium finisher in both Barcelona and Jerez. 11 different riders have been on a Supersport podium this season. Tully last of them in the standings. 2 retirements in the last 3 races have stopped him from climbing higher. Yeah, it has been a tough season for Nicky. Inconsistent at the start of the year. Very fast in Aragon, but obviously crashes marred the start of his campaign. Good to see him back on form the last few rounds. Early season series leader Stephen Odendahl looking to settle 2nd overall here. 38 points up on Manuel Gonzalez, only 50 points available, of course. But at one stage, that gap was 98. Odendahl's only managed a single podium in the last 8 races. Yeah, and for Odendahl, it has been a really tough second half of the campaign. The reason for that is a lot of other riders have really stepped up their game. The likes of Chan On-Chu, we've seen him regularly battle it out in those top 5-6 positions and have a couple of podiums as well. So it has gotten tougher and tougher as the season's gone on. His teammate Peter Sebastian's qualified directly behind him, P10. The Hungarian provided his 2 best results of the season last time out in Argentina. 5th place from race 2, 22 points over the course of the round. And Sebastian hasn't done better in any race weekend in Supersport, looking to underline that progress this weekend. Yeah, and for Peter, we have seen a few flashes of good performances on that Evan Brothers bike, but it is a tough task in the Supersport class this year. A lot tougher than it has been in previous years to come in and make an impact. Unai Radre P11, he picked up 5 points in San Juan, his best in 5 rounds at Supersport level so far. He's had a Spanish championship back-to-back since. Valencia and Jerez took 2 wins and 2 seconds to comfortably win the Open 600 category there. Yeah, he's done a good job in that Spanish championship. He's been able to adapt to a 600 well. Obviously, a lot of riders we've seen step up from 300, take that bit of time, but he's been able to hit the ground running given that domestic experience. Back to form last time out there, Hannah Suma, the number 38, a 4th place finish on the Sunday in Argentina. Pretty long time coming actually for the 23-year-old who hasn't had the 2021 he might have hoped for, particularly after finishing last season so well. And Suma, who completes the 4th row of the grid here, looking to tick off another campaign in style. Yeah, and for Hannah Suma, it hasn't been the easiest years for him on the Calio Yamaha, but we've seen him at different times over the course of the last few years, regularly able to get himself into the top 5. Hopefully we're able to see him nice and aggressive during the course of today's running as well. Looking a little bit further back, this is Andres Gonzalez, who completes the 5th row. He'll be lining up from P15, made his Supersport World Championship debut with a home round in Argentina, of course, last time out. We couldn't be much further away here in Indonesia, but the former Spanish Championship regular continuing as a substitute rider for Federico Fellini this weekend as well. The biggest surprise of the 5th row of the grid is reserved for Jules Cluzel, who's qualified all the way down down in 13th position. It's a big surprise because he's been the form man of late. Went 28 races without a win in Supersport, but he certainly made up for that over the last couple of rounds. 3 victories, and he's never been lower than 4th overall in 8 previous seasons. That's where he sits ahead of these final 2 outings in 2021.
Yeah, certainly expect to see Cluzel make some progress in the 5th row of the grid, but a big ask for him to maintain that kind of form that we saw in the last 2 rounds in Portimao in Argentina.
Christopher Bergman back from injury for a second time this season. His latest misfortune, a left leg fracture he sustained in Superpole at the Portuguese round. A real shame for him because he did start this season so very well, particularly in Aragon. He hasn't been back in the top 10 since his first layoff. So that brings us to the conclusion of the top 15 on the grid, the front 5 rows. Danny Valle in again as a substitute. Galang Hendra Pratama, the home man from P17, and blank slate here. Who will be our first ever Supersport winner in Indonesia? Steve English alongside me. Confirmation along the bottom of your screen that we're 1 man down in the absence of Valentin Debise, unfortunately sustaining a left shoulder injury. But the biggest story at this precise moment is that we've just had a notification from the race control that we've got drops of rain appearing in a couple of the sectors out on the circuit. And given the density of those dark clouds that are looming overhead, might not be the last we see of that lack of adhesion flag.
Yeah, and certainly in the Supersport class, we will start this race, and then it's up to the riders, if there is rain, to make their way back into the pits and then change tyres. There's a minimum time you have to spend in the pits, so in the Supersport class, that's 1 minute and 18 seconds this weekend to make sure that you're able to make a safe change of tyres and then get back out there. So we will keep an eye on that over the course of the running now in the Supersport class. 19 laps, that's a lot of time and a lot of opportunities for that rain to come down. There's very dark clouds over the paddock. They've spread their way over from the mountains just behind the racetrack, and they are going to probably in all likelihood give us a bit of a downpour in the next couple of hours.
Well, we've been saying it. We ordered it for the Superbike race just to try and keep that championship fight going for another day. But if it comes earlier than that, it's going to catch out Supersport. Wouldn't be the first time that we've had a big down.
Remember, a camera lets in an awful lot more light than there's actually out there. It's 29 degrees right now, but walking over to the commentary box just before the start of this session feels a lot cooler out there. And certainly if we do have rain, we've had thunderstorms in the area in recent days, and even on Tuesday we had a massive downpour here as well, so it can get very wet very quickly in this kind of area. And for these Supersport riders, they're going to be really taking it careful now on their siding lap.
Yes, already riders beginning to ease up and show caution on what's going to be a nervous start to race 1 here in Supersport. It's too early for any gambles, though, or any bold decisions at this point. I think everyone's got to stick with what they're riding. Yeah,
they're all out there on the X tyre on the rear, the super soft compound rear tyre. Hannah Sumer, the only rider out there on the slightly harder front tyre. He's out there on an SC2 front tyre on the number 38 Yamaha. Everyone else out there on the same combinations, front and rear.
Reminder, if you're just joining us, the 2021 FIM Supersport World Championship already settled in favour of Dominic Egerter, the number 77, who lines up here from pole position. 68 points, an unassailable lead ahead of Stephen Odendahl. Odendahl hasn't yet settled down the silver medal, and Manuel Gonzalez directly behind him could move forward, but could still move backwards. He's got Jules Cluzel and Philip Ertl, both for company, tied on 241 points apiece. The final weekend of the 2021 campaign. We've also got the Teams Award in focus this afternoon. Lights out on race 1, the first ever World Championship race here at the Mandalika International Circuit. And it's a decent start from Federico Caricasulo, who sweeps straight across. Manuel Gonzalez going backward. Onchu making one of his customary darts towards the front of the field. Onchu getting around the outside, but Manuel Gonzalez and Stephen Odendahl making good progress. Didn't get off to the best of starts to his weekend. With
he lost about half a dozen spots on the run down in towards turn.
On Dominic Egerter for second position here towards lap number 2. Odendahl in the slipstream then of Chan Onchu as they head towards turn 1. The top 6 all covered by less than a second. Odendahl into turn 1. Odendahl released now up into 5th position. Remember, he started 9th on the grid, and that's a fine early effort from Stephen Odendahl.
Yeah, the key overtaking opportunities around this track. Turn 1, turn 10, and then down the inside
circuit like the back of his hand, but is struggling here today so far. Struggling on lap 2 is Dominic Egerter. Pick progress, and remember, that's important in the context of the Teams Award, because Evan Brothers have the most ground to make up of the 3 three contenders.
Yeah, we've seen
11th, so at the moment, the Evan brothers outfit looking pretty decent with 6th and 7th. Chan Onchu in 5th, and it's Onchu who was the fastest man around last time on lap 2, a 1 minute 38.193. So he pushed perhaps a little bit too hard on the opening lap, Chan Onchu, but he's got the speed to try and take the fight to the leaders.
Yeah, the fastest times we've seen this weekend down in the 36s in the Super Sport class, so still plenty of ground to be able to make up for these riders, but obviously with those spots of rain, it is
race results, but he's out in front here. Hasn't been a race winner since Portimao 2019. Federico Caricasulo, the former world number 2, of course, is under a lot of pressure here from Manuel Gonzalez. Gonzalez ducks to the inside as they head in towards turn 10. He's later on the brakes as well if he gets it stopped here. Manuel Gonzalez will be your new race leader. Caricasulo second. Onchu comes firing into the shot and then fires out of it on the outside. Second. Egerter biding his time. De Rossa and Onchu scrapping it out for 4th. Then it's the two Evan brothers run. Did manage to get through on Randy Krumenack, tripping over one another. That's how bunched in they are together.
Yeah, that was one of the sectors where we did have those spots of rain. Just worth giving the shaders.
Looks as though all the way down the start-finish straight, we've started to get some drops of rain. Looking just outside of our commentary box, but you daren't take your eyes off the action either. Manuel Gonzalez leads the way. Caricasulo second. De Rossa through on Egerter, who's dropped back. Nervous start to lap 4 for Dominic Egerter, who's taking it easy here, and it's visibly showing here because through comes Chan Onchu now. So Egerter's lost 2 positions in a matter of 2 sectors. Odendahl will be the next rider to try and swallow him up. Then it's Peter Sebastian. Jules Cluzel and Randy Krumenacker have both got through on Unai Radre at the start here of lap 4. De Rossa making progress, is now through on his fellow countryman Caricasulo for second, and there goes Odendahl launching a move down the inside on the new world champion Dominic Egerter.
Easier in some sectors, that's why we're seeing this gap start to stretch out, and certainly for Dominic Aguilar, our world champion, he took it a lot easier than some of the other riders there with those spots of rain starting to fall.
Yes, this shot, the first time you've seen a few drops of rain as well appearing on the camera, and it's Manuel Gonzalez who is trying to streak away and capitalise on it. 8/10 of a second now clear of Raffaele De Rossa, who's also managed to get a bit of clear air in front and behind of him. Federico Caricasulo beginning to drop back ever so slightly. Then it's Chan Onchu, but Onchu is bottling up the pack behind. Egerter's got back through now on Odendahl for 5th position as he gains in confidence in the slippery conditions. It's Peter Sebastian with dual clip problems for Odendahl. I think he might have missed a gear there coming off the final turn because he stopped basically right in front of his teammate Peter Sebastian. They both lost out to both Randy Krumenacker and Jules Cluzel. So completely new order at the start of lap 5. Gonzalez, De Rossa, Caricasulo, Onchu, Egerter, Krumenacker and Cluzel.
You can see Hendra Patama comes into the pits for Tenkate. We also saw that it looked like Chris Bergman on the number 71 machine. Bergman lost a lot of positions on that last lap, so he's clearly just decided to come straight into the pits, make the change, see if it works out for him. Obviously enough for the riders if we see a few of the riders.
So 77 seconds, that is the required time just for safety purposes, but Galang Hendra Patama could be among the riders to gain the most. He's stranded down at the back of the field with Christopher Bergman, nothing to lose from that position anyway. You come in, if the weather gets worse, then you're sitting pretty.
Yeah, heads out on those intermediate tyres. That's going to be the tyre of choice for all these riders as it is right now, unless the rain comes down a lot heavier. They're about 8 seconds a lap off their fastest pace, so right now you're still in and around the same times that you might be able to do on that intermediate tyre. We did see though earlier in the season in the Superbike class in particular in Aragon, you can make that intermediate tyre work in a very wide operating window. All the race leaders staying out for at least another lap.
As they go side by side for second position, but you can see a guarantee. That's why we said we quite fancied seeing a little bit of rain today, particularly for the Superbike race. Gives you an insight.
That gap. Krumenacker's done a good job to get himself back up into 4th. Just looking at the gap back to Hendra Patama, he's about 90 seconds behind the race leader. He's just about to finish his lap, so a lot of ground to make up for Hendra, but he is already on those intermediate tyres. We'll keep an eye on his sector times.
Randy Krumenacker squeezed out there by Chan Onchu. Onchu visibly being held back by Manuel Gonzalez. Not for much longer, although he sticks it out on the inside. Here comes Caricasulo trying to go the long way round. 4 riders in the mix here for second position. Gonzalez holding them up. Krumenacker faster than the pair of them. Finally gets released on Onchu. Onchu comes back through, moves his elbow as he makes his way off the final turn. Onchu and Krumenacker. Now Caricasulo thinks about a move to recover a provisional podium.
Towards turn 10, that's where he's going to attack.
Peter Sebastian further back is one of the riders who has struggled the most since the weather conditions have deteriorated. He's dropped all the way down to 11th, and Unai Radre has dropped behind him into P12.
Looking outside the commentary box window, it has stopped raining now.
Change of position for the lead. Manuel Gonzalez hits the front on Raffaele De Rossa. So as the track conditions begin to settle, covering the top 6 at present. It's classic Superbike stuff. It's classic Supersport stuff, but in unusual out to try.
A lot of the disappointment we've seen at times through.
first World Championship race here in Lombok is in the record books. The first superbike race from the Mandalika International Circuit is just minutes away, and it could be a title decider.